Welcome back to the show that gave the color purple a whole new meaning. That's right, folks. It's the second season of the second Marvel Netflix series, a show following a hard-drinking, hard-boiled private investigator with superhuman abilities as she combats her dark past returning to haunt her. This woman and this show is Jessica Jones. So join us as we start investigating Jessica Jones. That's right, Dragon. That's right. We are back relatively soon after the premiere of Jessica Jones season 2. It's been what, like roughly a month?
Let's see. It was March 8th, International Women's Day.
Oh, so it's been like maybe like 3 weeks, not even a month.
Yeah.
So this is important to note, folks. This is because we kind of we skipped out on our usual tradition of trying to get the previous Marvel Netflix show done before the other Marvel Netflix show comes out, with the Punisher kind of being a weird outlier that we'll get to in time. But we wanted to get all the Defender stuff out before Jessica Jones season 2. Because of my trip to Disney World, we didn't quite get that done. So to pay back Jessica, because we don't want Jessica Jones to come to our house and steal our lunch money. To pay our dues, we've decided to tackle her series and tackle her second season shortly after the premiere. So this is very important to note, Dragon. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you and I were kind of tackling this the same way we tackled Luke Cage season 1, where we watched through it the first time, and now we're kind of going back and we're doing the rewatch.
Yeah.
Yeah, so important to note, Dragon, just to kind of lay the groundwork for our thoughts on the season as a whole, of course, without giving away any spoilers or anything. Jessica Jones season 2 is a very interesting enigma of a season. It's pretty criticized. I've got to say, I'm one of the people who's got the unpopular opinion that The Punisher honestly might be my least favorite Marvel Netflix show, including Iron Fist.
Oh, come on. That is unpopular.
Iron Fist is at least fun. All right? I get no joy out of The Punisher.
Oh.
I get not one shred of joy. I'm just like, these are just, I don't know. At the very least, though, I have to say Jessica Jones season 2, I like it way better than The Punisher. It's weird, Dragon, because we kind of had this discussion shortly after the season came out, where this season, it fixes a lot of problems from season 1, where we don't have the problem characters from season 1, and that was the issue. But at the same time, I feel like the big subversive thing that we do with Jessica Jones season 2, without giving away too much of the plot here right off the gate, is really, there's no traditional antagonist for this season, which is, of course, a big, bold move for something like Jessica Jones Season 2. After Jessica Jones Season 1, the Purple Man... Dragon, I'm sorry, I know you love Wilson Fisk. I love Wilson Fisk, too. I think Kilgrave is honestly even a notch above Wilson Fisk in terms of the sheer mindfuckery that goes on.
Look, I will contend that they are neck and neck, but Wilson Fisk still, I mean, come on.
They're neck and neck, or should we say neck in the car door and neck in the car door?
Well, neck in the car door and neck turned all the way around, sure.
All right, right. Dragon, any kind of thesis statement, thoughts that you have going into the season without giving away the big broad strokes of the season?
Well, sure. So overall, I was pleased with Jessica Jones season 2. And a lot of people are a little harsh on it, and I think we'll get through and just kind of sift some of that out. I mean, this season surprised me with how much criticism it drew by the diehard, some particular diehard Jessica Jones fans. It was really surprising because I thought, again, bear in mind, I haven't read everything Jessica Jones, but I get the gist of it. And I remember back when we were pitching what ifs of the Marvel Netflix series before any of them premiered. Again, I did my research on Jessica Jones, and I thought she was rife with a lot of great potential. And basically, if you ever had a one sentence pitch of what Jessica Jones is, basically she is the real world. She's a real world Peter Parker with worse luck than Peter Parker. She's that's the thing. She's kind of the R-rated Peter Parker in real life. That's kind of what she is, where she is a character who got she had worse luck than Peter Parker's. Things still turned out nice now and then for him, and again he kind of saved the day in the end. He got the glory and everything. He's the hero. Where Jessica Jones, she gets like in the marvelous world of the Marvel universe in the comics, like all this amazing stuff's happening, and what the comics really strive for, in particular the first arc. I mean, I'm more familiar with the first arc of Jessica Jones than I am the rest of the stuff. The first arc in the Purple Man story, it's about really what I got in the comics with her, and basically, as it kind of shows, like she was on the Avengers team in the comics for a while, but she's kind of back in her hero days, back in the days where she kind of, as it's teased in the show, she was Jewel. She was wearing the costume, she was all decked out, and she was kind of like a happy-go-lucky superhero back in the day with a really rough origin. And again, life just kicked her around, and like the best example I could give you that does kind of cast a shadow over the season a little bit is the big origin for Jessica Jones was actually in the comics. Tony Stark gave her family tickets to go to Disney World.
Oh, no.
I'm pretty sure it was Disney World, not Land, but I think the point is they're going to Disney World. And on the way, that's when, the truck full of chemicals, all the origin happened. Because, again, something good happens, and, of course, something bad is really not far behind. So I think the season remains true to what Jessica Jones is. Like something, let's just say something good happens to Jessica Jones, and of course rife with a lot of tragedy. And you'd think, okay, hey, she's recognized as a hero. She's kind of gotten past, she's defeated the Purple Man. It can only go up from here. But no, she's still going to have that trauma, and a lot more bad stuff is definitely going to befall her. And I guess the last thing I'll say before we've gone on too long with it is, I feel Jessica Jones' strength as a Netflix show has always been she's utilized the 13 episodes best out of, I won't say more than the first season of Daredevil utilizes all 13 episodes, but everything else,
I feel like Daredevil season 1 is like an outlier to the entire conversation.
Exactly. So again, barring Daredevil season 1, I think even you look at Luke Cage, look at everyone else aside from Daredevil season 1, Jessica Jones made the most out of the 13. Jessica Jones used like a long form narrative, and that every piece does build to something, and it does kind of, it's sewing like a tapestry, Where something like Luke Cage, you could pare it down to almost like it kind of breaks in half, and good halves. I'm just saying it's a different season, like a mini season for both halves. And
to tell you the truth, Dragon, I kind of feel like Jessica Jones season 2 does the same thing, but in reverse order, where all our favorite stuff in Luke Cage season 1, not to say that the second half is bad, but all our favorite stuff, the Great Cottonmouth arc is in the first half. Honestly, Jessica Jones season 2, I really there's some middle episodes like 3 and I don't know the exact episodes, but there's a couple in episodes 1 through 6 that just really just test my patience and really just shine as an example of like the Marvel Netflix, for God's sakes, you guys got to work on your pacing issues, for God's sakes.
Well, look, I'll say on the first watch, I didn't see any of that. We'll see how it bears on the second watch, though. You might be right. So we'll see how that stacks up.
I will say, I think this season ends on a very strong note, and I really think that basically every episode after, like episode 7 is kind of like our big highlight, quote unquote episode 8 of the season, where it's like, the big event. And the episodes, folks, we're in kind of agreement that episodes 7 and 11 are kind of like our big 8 and 9.
Oh, absolutely. Just, my God, I can't say enough nice things. I can't wait to get to those 2 episodes. I'm so excited for those 2 episodes.
But regardless, my point is, unlike Luke Cage, I feel like this season only goes up dramatically from episode 7 onwards.
Yeah, I would concur with that, but again, we'll see how the other earlier ones do on a rewatch. So you have, again, because you're hyped up and you're in the mood, you're kind of binging them. And for me, I binged them in like maybe 2 or 3 chunks. So they say I finished it a lot faster than I usually do with Netflix series. But I'm sensing that I still think Jessica Jones, out of all the other shows, the other shows could benefit from like lowering, not doing 13 episodes. Jessica Jones, I still feel like she could do it's like a noir mystery, where she kind of needs those chapters in her story to kind of get through things. Now, yeah, we'll see if she doesn't have as many problem characters, but there's still a few things here and there that, well, we'll get to. There are a few things that I'm interested to see how they hold up on the second watch. And this is the last thing we should also address. It's a big thing. We don't need to get political or anything, but there's one thing we should address in this season is that this season, the show does feel a little recharged, a little kind of hypercharged with kind of a new vision, because we have a lot of I don't know if I don't know if they're all first timers, but I mean, they feel like they're first timers who did really well. We have a lot of female. This season has been, they promoted this from the very get go before they announced any details about the show. The season 2 of Jessica Jones would have all female directors.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was looking for some Breaking Bad directors in that lineup. Unfortunately, they weren't there. But regardless,
McLaren, unfortunately.
yeah, I know. I was really looking forward to Michelle McLaren, but I don't know if this is during like
Michelle McLaren directing a Jessica Jones. That would be.
I don't know if I don't know if this is maybe during the whole like Wonder Woman thing where she was kind of busy, but then of course that didn't pan. So I don't know if maybe that's why or why not. Maybe they don't want to delve too much into the Breaking Bad directors for their shows for some reason. I don't know. Regardless, I'm saying you do have a great visual style with all these. I think all these directors did an excellent job this season, and we'll see again on the rewatch like certain things. I know this episode has some really cool stuff in it. So I think visually, Jessica Jones came more alive this season. So overall, there's
really like I want to say it's like episodes 2 through 5. Like those are the ones that really bleed together for me. So I'm going to be curious on the rewatch, much like you're curious to see if they don't hold off as well. I'm going to be curious to see if it's like a Luke Cage second half situation where as I rewatch it holds up a little bit better, because honestly, to me, a lot of the problem with this season, the first half, is it's kind of just like, it's sort of spinning the wheels a little bit. I'm honestly kind of questioning how much good conversation we're going to get out of that, but my God, we're going to try.
All right. Okay. So let's just, I guess, with that said, let's just dive into it all.
All right. Let's get into the plot.
Yes. Plot. Tiki, hit him with the episode name.
Oh, the episode name is AKA Start from the Beginning.
Yeah, we should try doing that with the plot. It's occurred to me now. Like, yeah, we should try doing it now and again. Okay. So here's the plot, folks. Jessica Jones is back in the PI saddle, so to speak, but living with the Kilgrave reputation, snapping the Purple Man's neck, very public forum. Like, hey, she's a superhero, but she killed a guy. Trish uncovered. Trish is in the process of uncovering a big IGH lead. IGH, the name I was very psyched going into the season for, by the way, IGH. And is followed by parties unknown. Jessica and Malcolm deal with a new PI rival, Price Chang. Price Chang. Let's see. Jessica finds herself caught up in the big IGH mystery of the season, which leads to death and a new trauma. Oh my God! A really traumatizing thing happens to Jessica Jones this episode, folks. Boy, oh boy, we'll get to that later on, believe you me. And after going through said trauma and experience yet another death in her very cursed apartment, by the way, because a lot of death befalls her apartment, electric paint in the walls, a lot of that stuff happens. And she's confronting her past and her origin. That's essentially where we really kick the season off with a lot of plates spinning this first episode. So that's the episode.
Okay, Dragon, and without further ado, it's time to jump into the episode proper and start talking about oh crap, do I not have it? Crap. I'm blowing it. Hold on, Dragon. Sorry. Oh, we had this all queued up and everything, folks. I accidentally closed the tab, Dragon. I'm so sorry. Oh, man. Sorry, folks. I promise in the future this will be a much more smooth transition. All right. It's time to it's time to peel back the curtain and start talking about. Hold on. Okay.
Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones. It's Jessica Jones.
Jessica's journey. Wow, I sure botched that, didn't I, Dragon?
Yeah, we're gonna workshop that one, folks.
Oh yeah.
Yes, Jessica's journey.
Jessica's journey. All right. So yeah, it's very much kind of the Dragon. To be fair, I think one of the criticisms that this episode holds that I kind of agree with to a certain extent is I kind of feel like some of the character development in the Defenders is lost, because I feel like Jessica Jones is in a very similar place to where she was. Like, she's working again, which is more than you can say about her place in the Defenders, but it's a very similar kind of position where she's very much against the H word. I like the whole idea that people are kind of going to her like, hey, basically we need you to kill this guy. Like the cold open of the season like illustrates that really well, with the woman who's caught her boyfriend cheating on her, and she like basically like as the boyfriend walks in, she very callously orders a hit on the boyfriend and wants Jessica to do it. And I like how Jessica's just like, hey, come over here. All right, you're caught. She wants to kill you. All right, sort it out. And but it's really interesting, like you said, the whole idea that now that she's killed someone, people are kind of looking to that, like they don't think she's a monster. They shouldn't think she's a badass, if anything else.
Yeah, well, Tig, one from a logistical standpoint, you got to bear in mind. I'm not sure how much this affected the writing. I can imagine it would impact it on some level. That they did kind of the Superman, or like I guess the modern example, the Infinity War or Avatar, where they were shooting while they were shooting Defenders in New York. They were also shooting Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. So the point is, while Defenders is being figured out, they're executing the other season. They shot it all back to back. They're in the same shoot, so they probably didn't know where her character arc was going in Defenders while they're crafting this. So that might be why they're really scarce on the Defenders. But the way I look at it, though, and again, there's nothing really refuting it, is that I think the Defenders thing just kind of helped bolster her reputation. Again, mainly for Kilgrave. Not everyone knows what happened in Midland Circle, but you got to imagine it's still playing up the hero thing. And they mentioned that Trish was talking about her on the radio, and most likely the events of the Defenders is probably the stuff she's referring to on the radio. So I still think there's like enough of it there that you can just I think you can assume that, okay, her super heroics that she was like party to was like that's feeding the fire of like, oh yeah, she's a superhero and she killed that one bag of mind control people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I really think Jessica. I think she obviously, in a show called Jessica and You'd Imagine, she is the strongest part of the whole season. This go around. Jessica is again definitely still kind of the MVP, much like she was the MVP of Defenders. I think she's the MVP of the character arc she goes through this season. She's I love that. I love where we are with her arc, and basically, I feel like we're taking the seed of the idea in Defenders. I think we're allowing it to bloom here. We didn't have enough time for it to bloom in Defenders. That's why I think we'll Leisure on it there, because I love that she's conquered her Purple Man trauma of the past, but not the present. So I love this. Again, like all the stuff in the past that's happened with the Purple Man, she's been able to move past that. The problem is that, again, as you said, D, like the whole like snapping the guy's neck, that's the reputation, that's the trauma with the Purple Man she's now living down. Now she's kind of made peace with like defeating him and all that stuff. It's like wounds opened by a different name almost.
Exactly.
And she's dealing with those ethical ramifications of the title, like because now she's referred to as Hero, so now she's kind of like she's working with Hero, like she's working with that name, but she still views it. She's not avoiding it, but she's dealing with it. That's kind of where it's at. She's dealing with being hailed as a hero, and a hero by modern cynical standards. Like a PI referred to as a hero is not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's. The other thing, and this is important though, again, the last thing I really got to go to with Defenders on this whole thing, because it's important for the whole season, Tiki. The biggest thing with Defenders is that we're living in a post-Defenders world. We're living in a world where Defenders popularizes the super being. It shows that, hey, we have Avengers caliber superheroes in New York, and like kind of living amongst us, and we don't know how many more there are, and Midland Circle probably just kind of publicized that. Like people are hearing word of like the Bulletproof Man in Harlem that's probably getting around to Hell's Kitchen. It's probably it's the kid with the glowing fist, Danny Rand. Like that. I think things are. It's a new status quo that Jessica's dealing with. I think that's we see that in Law Enforcement, the way Law Enforcement looks at Jessica Jones this season in later episodes. So she's definitely dealing with new status quo in Hell's Kitchen, which is making her work. Making her job a lot harder with people looking to her as like, hey, there's a person who's going to use her super strength, and I'm going to marvel at it while she does it to solve all my problems. And like, if I want something else on the side, something more illicit, I'm going to have the guts to try to ask her for that. That's what our pizzeria lady's thinking. So, it's a reluctant. She's reluctant to move on in denial that she needs to confront her origin. That's the big thing she's in denial with this season, this episode. By the end of this episode, she has to move past that because she learns it's kind of wrapped up in a big conspiracy with our with our questionable villainous force. Yeah, I say questionable because they're not clear-cut bad guys. She's being discriminated against because of, like, as we're going to learn with her new landlord. She's going to be discriminated against because of her powers that everybody knows. Okay, now she's got her powers, and people are assuming that, hey, she's behind any super crime going on around here. It must be the girl with powers.
And with the landlord, I like how things don't really start out cantankerous at first, but like it really kind of like goes into the the next few episodes where we really start to break down that relationship.
Yeah,
but I gotta say, Oscar is definitely one of the he's one of the strong suits of the season, I think, and I actually think he's kind of unappreciated. And
no.
What?
Sorry, go on.
No, I mean, I'm just saying we'll break it. Like, there's not much to say about him. He really just gets introduced this episode. But I like the idea of giving Jessica Jones kind of like I really like what we do by the end of the season with Oscar. I like the final destination that we hit with him.
Yeah, I just want to echo you. I agree with you full-heartedly. I really do like Oscar in this season. I love how she relates to...
And I feel like he doesn't get enough credit in the feedback for the season. I feel like not enough people are talking about his effective role. Anyways.
I never thought... I always assumed that he was just kind of also remembered nicely for the season. But I never really heard Oscar mentioned by name. And now you bring that up, it's kind of news to me that, oh man, I guess people haven't getting Oscar credit.
Hey, don't get me wrong, he's not like amazing like Kristen Ritter is. Like, Kristen Ritter, by all accounts, should be taking the lion's share of the praise for this season. But like I said, I think in the context of her overall arc, he's very effective, and we'll get into that episode by episode.
So again, the last thing I have is a transitioning point if you're ready for it.
Yeah, sure.
So I guess the big thing we get with her is, again, she's trying to fight her past. She doesn't want to look into it. Again, we see, she's compartmentalizing her problems very literally with her family's ashes, which, again, is going to be a huge thing later on. She's now, she's being discriminated against. Like anything that's going wrong is kind of falling upon her head. With, again, like the death of a super person is definitely going to, it's definitely jump-started her story. So she is now the death of the wizard. Death of the wizard. We'll get to him, but I got things to say about him. The death of this other...
Yeah.
Death of this other super person who is also linked in the IGH. She sees I think at the end of this episode, she sees as a motivator, so she can blame IGH for... Basically, she can place the blame over IGH. Now she seems like, okay, there's a name. It's not just like my bad luck. I think she's trying to like lump right off, like, bad stuff happens to her, just bad luck that kind of led to a that was a car accident that really threw her life into disarray. And she's kind of going on what Trish is saying this season, that, hey, it's all because of IGH. It's all because of IGH. She's saying, okay, well, these guys are bringing up some bad stuff from my past. So I'm gonna just lump all my bad stuff on IGH, which is kind of a reckless idea for her. It's like, it's very dangerous to put your eggs all in one basket. And that's essentially what she's doing with IGH, and we're going to see how that pans out for this season.
Okay. All right, let's move on to unraveling IGH. Speaking
Tiki,
of which,
it's the silliest thing, but I don't know what to tell you. Going into this season, I don't know why. The thing I was most, you and I only speculated about it during the first season of Jessica Jones, like the tail end of Jessica Jones, I guess, maybe a bit in Defenders, but the biggest thing I was so psyched for this season was IGH, and IGH is not. I'm pretty sure it's not in the comics or anything. Just IGH is like an idea they came up with, just the label, like what gave her powers, and like the whole conspiracy plot at the tail end of the first season, where we're getting this image from. And I don't know why. I was just so psyched. Oh my God, IGH. I was like telling everyone about the show. Oh yeah, and there's this company, IGH. It's like, I don't know why. It's like this whole conspiracy.
Because it's sort of like the Weapon X program for the Marvel Universe in a way, and it's got kind of like a loose Deadpool tie that way.
And also there's like a vague kind of Captain America kind of thing too. I don't know. It's the whole it's the idea of super soldiers, but kind of engineering and the fact that it could connect to a lot of things like... They haven't weighed in on this, but I mean...
Also, you kind of get a little bit of a vaguely, like, Stranger Things kind of vibe to it, too.
I definitely see the Stranger Things connect in that regard. Maybe that's why subconsciously I was a little bit more hyped for it as well. But I don't know, I was thinking like Luke Cage. Again, we never got a name on what that program was, and maybe it connects to Luke Cage and the Purple Man. Because, again, those projects are very likely linked together. What happened because they were on the same flash drive.
Mhm.
But anyway, so it's the point is IGH. I went into this season very hyped about IGH, and that's kind of what it's kind of our villain. But in the first season of Investigating Jessica Jones, we had the Purple Man's progressions. Purple Man was a very driving force, and here he's more in kind of like a conceptual driving force for Jessica. He's kind of hanging over her head in places,
We
and
might have to give the Purple Man his own category in one episode.
well, certainly. But you see what I'm saying? Like for the majority of this season, IGH does bear a big role, and IGH is kind of it's a questionable villain. Again, questionable. That are they the bad guys?
Dragon, I gotta say, it's kind of interesting. Like, maybe that's where you and I kind of differentiate. Like, to me, IGH was always kind of like just the Weapon X light. Like, I always kind of like looked at them as like, okay, we're just kind of doing the X-Men Weapon X thing again, where it's like, it's the shady company giving people powers against their will. And I gotta say, Dragon, that to me is a big part of why I don't really care for the first half of the season all that much, because we're just kind of slowly unraveling the mystery behind this company, and it's, to me, that's not really very compelling. But just getting into what we learn about IGH just through this one episode, of course, we get a really fun scene with Trish kind of humiliating herself to get the file. That's a really good introduction to Trish.
It was an excellent way to check in with her this season, but it's like poor Trish. It's so sad. Basically, we do a ghost. I know you haven't. I don't think you've seen this, Steve, but she basically had to pull a Ghostbusters 2 at the beginning of this.
I've sadly not seen Ghostbusters 2. That's one I need to get around to.
Basically, it's to make it simple. They had to they were performing at a kid's birthday party at the beginning of that movie, so it's identical to what we do with Trish here. It's really funny. So IGH, what we know about it, really the way we got to approach IGH in the beginning here, we just got to list out what they do so we can see by the end like how villainous they truly are. So that's the real thing we got to like, kind of take note of here. So their mentality is to cover things up by any means necessary. They're sending pills to the wizards, sending pills to the people they know about who were experimented on by IGH, so they can cover up their powers. And the fact that Jessica wasn't interested in the case, the fact that Jessica wasn't poking around or had any link to IGH, that's why they never went after her. So now that's going to change because now she's kind of in the thick of it, and she's been contacted by a known entity that's been involved with IGH.
Mm-hmm.
So. And important again, that's the important thing I think we should really list out with IGH at the very top here. And that's the thing that really got to explore is that we see they're not going with the lethal option. They're going with the half measures over the lethal option here because again, it's not their go-to because again, all these half measured attempts to kind of erase themselves without killing people. With the wizard, like send them pills instead of just like killing them off, despite the fact that there might be a super assassin out there that we assume is another beloved character from Jessica Jones, but well, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see how that turns out.
What we know is there is a link to Metro Hospital, which, by the way, Metro Hospital, it's where Claire worked, and that's where we did have some shady stuff happen in Daredevil season 2 with Metro because they had some link to the hand. True. Remember, they wrote off like, oh yeah, it was a nurse impaled by a scalpel, not a ninja sword.
Of course, that's what made Claire kind of relocate in the first place, or one of the big factors in that.
Certainly, and we know that Metro is connected because the big. What's so cool is how we really put this into perspective. That Trish had the one file.
Yeah, she has the one file, and and Trish is really kind of the driving force in the IGH storyline to start out with, which really kind of complements her storyline this season, of kind of like the beginning, like her storyline this season is essentially like the proto Hellcat. It's almost like the Hellcat origin story.
I mean, the cool thing that we're going to see is that Trish, she was able to do all this based on this little kind of kitty performance at the beginning where she got that one file. She's going to uncover like something that people have been trying to, that we think is like, okay, this is like a big conspiracy she's unlocked. And I love the kind of the reveal we're going to be getting into where, she is going to be able to kind of expose IGH based on one file. But as we're going to find out, IGH, maybe it's not as hard to expose these guys as we really would imagine it was. That's the thing. I went into this expecting IGH to be this huge thing, but I think as we're going to find, this is my theory on the rewatch, I think we're going to find IGH may not be as kind of ominous as we initially thought.
Well, no, I mean, of course, we're getting way ahead of ourselves with that, but I feel like by the end of the season, the whole point of IGH is it's kind of like this it's almost like a pathetic, like misguided attempt at helping people more than anything else, and it's run by people who are way over their heads.
It's a good idea. Yeah, it's an excellent point. I want to see how that goes forward. So, let's see if there's anything else major here. So again, the point is Trish is now on the radar. She's being she's being targeted. And again, this is Trish's attempt to kind of fight without using her powers. She's trying to do good without her powers, without having any powers or any like thing like Jessica Jones has at this point. And the last thing we got to hit with IGH, I guess, and then we'll move on to the next thing. I love that at the end we reveal that IGH. It's kind of like a Men in Black thing. They're in plain sight the whole time. It's industrial garments and handling.
Yeah.
I love Tiki. I love that IGH was there the whole time. That's where the abbreviation came from. I loved it.
All right, moving on. Let's get to alias alliances. Okay, let me center that a little bit.
There we go.
All right.
It's like Chris and Jessica on a Scooby adventure. Look at them.
God. Okay, let's start with Jessica and Malcolm.
Yeah. So Malcolm, he's very. I love what we do with Malcolm this season. By the way, just broadly.
I just think everyone all the way around is kind of like improved from their status in season 1. I think we can agree that season 1, like even the characters that we like Malcolm and Trish, they didn't really get a ton to do. And I think especially like Malcolm and Trish, like especially Trish, I want to say if Jessica wasn't the MVP of this season, I definitely think that this is Trish's season. I really like outside of one character in the Trish storyline that we'll get into that's kind of problematic. I really think Trish was at the top of her game, but Malcolm too. I definitely I think this was a very good run for him. And of course, we start the season in a kind of comedic fashion with Malcolm being the he's the assistant that's always getting fired, but being fired means nothing. And Dragon, one of the things I like about that we'll see come back through the course of the season is his employment situation with Jessica becomes more and more problematic as the season goes on, and it becomes more and more of a personal issue for him. So we'll see how that plays out over the course of the show.
I love the reluctant PI lessons. I love what Jessica saying, "I'm not here to teach you," and she's okay. Here's a rare teaching moment.
All right, fine. You don't want me to be better at my job? All right, whatever.
So I love that he's proactive and he's trying to move. Basically, he's kind of the light in her life, saying, "Hey, let's move forward things. Let's again, as he's been consistently, even like at the end of Defenders. Essentially, again, Defenders kind of pulled off a fun trick with Jessica, where like basically we echoed the same ending as season 1. We used the same exact ending, where basically we show where it's going, but Malcolm again was kind of the guy that carried that of okay, so he's in their dynamic, she just wants I don't want to be a hero. I don't want to answer these phone calls that we left off the first season with. Okay, she'll answer the phone and Malcolm's gonna be the secretary or the assistant. He's gonna answer the phone and she's gonna get the cases and he's gonna help out and such. And then Jesse's like, no, I don't want any of that. By the end, Daredevil. Oh, okay, that's. So I just realized I don't want to spoil anything for seeing Defenders. Let's just say the point is they're like, hey, it's like now I'm going to get back to business, and now we're kind of there with her. Where Malcolm's like the guy who's really kind of nudging the boss out of bed in the morning, like, hey, here's all your Monster Energy drinks. You gotta wake up. You gotta see the clients. Yeah, she's he's the guy in the dynamic who's trying to help people in the PI game, which is an uphill journey because the PI game, as we've seen classically with Jessica Jones at the beginning of this season and the beginning of last season, where we just see kind of what day-to-day PI life is. You're in alleys taking pictures of people doing CD
dealing with crazy people all day, essentially. And it's just hard to weed out the crazy people from the people who legitimately need your help.
I mean,
and then from there, it's hard to weed out the people who legitimately need your help for the people who can actually pay for your help.
Exactly, and it's a really hard business to help people in. Again, it's not like a full-fledged detective. It's not where it's your duty to help people. It's your duty to make money and do what the job is. That's what your duty as a PI is. So Jessica's keeping Malcolm around. I feel that Jessica keeps Malcolm around to to support her when she has her low moments. So I think she likes to have Malcolm around again. So like she'll fire him just like because she knows she's going to be around.
Well, I mean, as we definitely see in the season, Malcolm is, by all intents and purposes, Jessica's little brother figure. You know, she's the surrogate little brother, or Malcolm is to Jessica, I should say.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and also in that is also a practical sense. Like this is the guy who's kind of run the business while I'm kind of feeling sorry for myself at times. It's a little more complicated feeling sorry for yourself, but you know what I mean. I'm just, short lining it, but okay. So I mean, yeah, that's really all I got for Malcolm and Jessica in this episode.
Okay, let's see. Okay, Jessica and Price.
Yes, Price.
Yeah. So
I'll say this on the rewatch. I'm getting the impression on the rewatch, Price is not going to hold up that well.
I don't think so either.
I'll say
like over the moon about him when I was watching the first time through, but I wasn't really annoyed by him either. But yeah, I don't know.
That's the thing. Price, he intrigued me, but then as I put together the high concept thing with like the kind of the high concept thing we're going with in terms of our antagonist this season, I realized that Price is kind of he doesn't seem to be like real like antagonist material. He just seems to be like the jerk in the episode now and again.
I feel like the point of Price in the season is that he's sort of like he starts out as like the would-be antagonist, but by the end of the season, you really see how pathetic he is.
Yeah, and I think that I agree with you there, Tiki. That's the thing. I mean, Price, in the beginning, I'll give Price credit there. I do like imagine this: you're watching Jessica, the second season premiere, and you're getting, you're introduced to some new characters, and of course, we had some old characters we really weren't crazy about, and they made the smart decision. We got rid of those guys. We got some new characters coming in, and Price. I like what Price represents in this first episode. I love that, it's the small business versus the salesman of a PI. The guy's more of a salesman than he is a PI. It's kind of an Animal House thing. It's like the snobby elitist with a military record who basically can coast on that for all he's worth, versus the, versus kind of your humble PI business. And he basically sells his story as the American dream, but in reality, he's a cocky prick.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
In reality, that's what he is, and just basically Jessica versus kind of a rich bully dynamic. That's really what Price is. He's kind of a device just to push Jessica, and I know we do with him later on. Again, we won't talk about it here, but basically, I feel we only have Price in here for one purpose. So Jessica's a character who she can be pushed by people, but she won't compromise who she is at a fundamental level. Like she'll do things that seem like, okay, well, logically you shouldn't do that. She might just do things in the moment, but she won't do anything that crosses a line.
One thing I do appreciate about Price, characterization-wise, is his punctuality.
Yeah.
I like that he brags about that. Like, oh, it's 2 o'clock, Jerry. It's 2 o'clock on the dot. You know me, I'm never late.
What's neat is that we see that Malcolm, he's kind of in between, and this is probably important for later on. I think Malcolm, Malcolm's kind of an intermediary between where these two PIs are. Where Jessica Jones, she's the PI who works cheap but works good. Like this, Jessica Jones is the PI you want. Price is the PI you want to hang out with and kind of brag about. Like Price, like, oh yeah, I went to Price Chang. That's like, again, the rich guys are going to Price Chang.
Can we also just address the fact that Dragon and I both have kind of like an OCD issue of the fact that this guy has 2 last names?
Yeah, and also have like a vague Better Call Saul kind of callback, and like, oh my god, it's like Price, the Daniel Warble character.
Whenever we say Price, I feel like I'm saying the guy's last name, but and it actually is the guy's last.
I'm with you there. It does sound every time I agree with you wholeheartedly there. It's like, yeah, it's Price. It's such a last name. It's like a nickname or like a last name. There's no man's first name is Price.
Yeah, that's
impossible. That's not a real name. Anyway, seriously. But yeah, he's the guy's just he's very judgy. He's just he's very judgmental, and as well,
it's a very snide line that we'll get to in one of my favorite moments of the episode.
Just want to make sure I don't stump over that Moses.
Yeah, please don't.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's the point of Price. He's definitely just kind of in there to be kind of the prick that pushes her. So. Okay, let's move on.
So, Dragon, let's talk about America's Sweethearts. Let's talk about Trish and Griffin.
Yeah, so I'm getting a sense this is the character you're not crazy about.
Oh yeah, this is. I feel like this is the problem character of season 2, and thankfully he's only in about half of it, so it's not that bad.
I gotta tell you, Tiki, and I think we'll see how it goes. But Griffin, I really don't see him as a problem character. I just see him as like he's. Well, let me put it this way: I don't see him as a problem character like we have in the first season. The first
Like
season,
Robin.
yeah, he's no Robin by any stretch. But even with all the other ones, like those characters are problem characters in that they are also you don't like seeing him on screen, like they make you like they annoy you. Griffin, I feel like he's a character who's not necessary, but he's
Just kind of window dressing.
that's the thing. He's a window. That's the thing. He's not net. He's only necessary for a plot reason. That's not. I don't think it's a problem character. I just feel that's just like he's a plot character versus a problem character. You know, he's the. I kind of like where we go with him, but he really is inconsequential. We only use him just to kind of show he complements Trish's story. That's really his only function in this whole thing. That
And
he's
honestly, I don't really think he even does that. If anything, I think he kind of drags Trish's story in the early going down a little bit.
Well, I mean, we'll see how it lines up. But from my recollection, just seeing your point there, I could see it as he drags her story. You know, that he basically
Yeah,
kind
like he's ultimately the one who's like, no, you shouldn't be Hellcat, and we as an audience are like, yes, please, for the love of God, give us Hellcat.
like I can see
He's
him.
the one, I blame this guy for us not getting Hellcat in season 2, Dragon.
We definitely drag things out with Griffin. From my again, we'll see if it's. I think you're going to be right on that, Tiki. But
It annoys me that Griffin is essentially like, you cannot be a strong, independent woman because you're like, it's going to put you in danger. Like, that's the problem with Griffin.
well, you know, Tiki. Here's the thing. I read him as a little more open-minded. That was my read on it. I read him as he's a nice guy. He's seen action. He's a reporter. So he's a mix of what Trish wants in a guy. Because again, I don't want to speak too much of what we're going to get in later episodes, but he is kind of the guy. He's kind of like a character designed for okay, Trish would want this in a guy, and he is kind of perfect for her in that regard. But here's where I think we're going to like kind of expand, like kind of pull the thread on as we go forward and see how it kind of devolves. Maybe is that I think he's just the third wheel between the story between these two sisters. He's a third wheel, and I think we see in a few scenes here where when he's in a scene with Jessica, he is accommodating. He's like, okay, well, Jessica comes first. I get that. It's your sister. It's your priority, all right? And he just feels like, yeah, it's not bad. That's how you write a likable character. I mean, that's cool. But at the same time, his function, as we're addressing in the episode, he is a third wheel. We really can't do much with this guy. Why is he here?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I also feel like the writers felt they were being clever by making him British. Like, oh, look, it's kind of like a shadow of the Purple Man in Jessica's life.
You know, it's...
But they just do nothing with that idea.
I'm sorry. I really want to talk about another episode, but we can't. We shouldn't do it. So let's.
But you know what I mean, though. Like when I first saw him, I honestly thought that was the direction they were going to go. Is that he's kind of like, kind of like the guy who's sort of like reminding her of the Purple Man, even though by all intents and purposes he seems like a nice guy. But honestly, they do nothing with the PTSD of that whole thing. They could totally have it be a PTSD angle with the Britishness of him.
You know what they could have done? And again, we'll never know because they didn't do it this way. And again, I think logistically they probably just made it simpler by not doing this. But still, imagine this, Diggy. Imagine if, because we had that line the first season where we don't know what's going to happen if the Purple Man dies and people are under his control. And Trish was under control to love the Purple Man unconditionally. So you could. I'm just putting it out there as like a what if, folks. I'm not saying this makes what again. I can see the logic of what they went with in the end, but I'm saying imagine this: if we had that lingering question in the season, like with her relationships, and maybe there was like a subtle like she was the pheromones the Purple Man let out. What if she's attracted to men like Kilgrave subconsciously because of that control?
I could see that. That's kind of bonkers, but
it's like I'm saying that, and like the whole like it was kind of that scary question that we asked Jessica throughout the first season, like even after she broke free of the control, like Jessica, did you want to kill Eva Connors? Because he never said kill her, he said take care of her. So he's that made that link like what are you willing to do under hypnosis type question. But I don't know. So I'm talking out of school on that. So. Let's see. So yeah, that's really all I got about Trish and Griffin.
Okay, let's go into Jerry and Price.
Yeah, so Jerry and Price, honestly, this is mainly our excuse to talk about Jerry. So again, Price is just kind of like, oh, it's Price. So,
well, like I think the one thing to talk about with Price is, as I already mentioned, like he has a fun sort of bit with the punctuality.
yeah.
But yeah, Jerry, she honestly, Dragon, her storyline this season in its own right is good, and it definitely, I feel like it's an improvement over the season 1 Jerry.
Yes.
And it's well acted and everything. My problem with it is that, my God, is it similar to the Alexandra storyline? It's basically Alexandra without the God complex.
You know, I see where you're getting the Alexandra from. I just don't. I would disagree on that because I mean I think it's. I disagree with the comparison. I see where you're drawing like the parallel from what we do with kind of Hogarth and kind of like the driving force behind her story. I just don't really see an Alexandra kind of. I don't really see like an importance of Alexandra in any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But with Jerry, I really like the logistics that we opened her story up. But I love the payoff. Without I'm not saying I love the ending of her story. I love how we easily could have tanked Jerry's story, but we didn't, and we kind of made it. We made it a good story. I think there are a few, and we'll see how it holds up on the rewatch, honestly, because I think there's like a 2-episode speed bump with Jerry, and I'm curious to see how that holds up on a rewatch. But I think,
I kind of think I know what those 2 episodes are, but I won't say anything.
And yeah, and anyway, so with Jerry though, I love the where we open. Basically, I love how we book they open the book in her story and close the book in her story in really good places. So we open her story and then, since the 1,000 Cuts episode, the aftermath of the whole, Wendy, everyone knows it's Wendy, that whole thing. Ever since Wendy, the whole basically, she was purposely told her like to give Jerry death by 1,000 cuts, and her then girlfriend Pam, I think. Basically, killed her in a very gruesome manner to save her life. Though she wasn't under control or anything, just she saved her life from the controlled Wendy, and kind of sold her up the river. It's a very callous thing that Jerry did, and Jerry has to live with that. That's where we left off with her. And I like that the aftermath of that, much like Jessica has an aftermath, is that her law partners are like, hey, that's some bad press right there. That a murder happening that close to you through an office romance gone south, and basically. We're seeing what we're seeing is her ruthlessness in this episode. Where we're kind of checking back in with Jerry. Is that while I still love. I think my favorite stuff with Jerry Hogarth has probably been an Iron Fist because you was kind of
ironically enough. Yes, I agree.
I still love. I really hope that I want to get into reason. I hope that she's an Iron Fist season 2. I'll say that.
I think it was a missed opportunity to not have any interaction between her and Danny and Defenders, if I remember correctly.
I think you're absolutely right, and it's also a missed opportunity that she didn't have a scene with her other excellent lawyer in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So those two missed opportunities.
Folks, when we think Defenders, unfortunately, we do think missed opportunity.
Yeah. Anyway, again, mainly with Claire, but let's say I don't want to down any rabbit holes.
Well, I mean, it's with everything. We could go down a rabbit hole, honestly.
Okay, let's see. Getting back to my point. So again, Jerry, though, I like that what we're basically kind of showing like a karma. Jerry's story is very influenced by karma. That she has a ruthlessness and a business savviness that she has a business savviness, and I like that that's respected by Price. Like Price respects that, and it's almost like getting like the okay from the devil in a sense where. The minute, we see her being very comfortable, and essentially she's conspiring to absorb Jessica's business as a nice, at least I read it as, and I'll admit, I think they're really sketchy on this in the beginning, what exactly the plan was here on the rewatch. I'm still not 100% following this, but my read on it, the only logic I can draw from is that her plan was to absorb Jessica's business so she could absorb it into Price's business, but basically higher Price, and what she would do is she'd still maintain Jessica. And basically, she wouldn't have to worry about anyone saying, "Oh yes, that super strong, the super strong lady who killed that guy who lives in like a really rundown apartment." It's like, Jerry Hogarth, how can you associate yourself with someone who runs in like that crappy apartment? Right. Basically, it's like she's trying to make herself look better.
Right.
So basically, we see she and then she callously just turns to sue Jessica with Price after Price's like little manhood dispute of like, Jessica beat me up. Wah.
We'll get into that, yeah.
So the point is, she's Jerry Hogarth does a lot of callous stuff, and it seems like she's going to be really punished by the universe on that at the end of this episode. She gets some really bad news, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, and finally, let's move on to kind of the heart of the season, if you will. Jessica and Trish.
Sister, sister.
I love the sisterly theme, Dragon, and again, I just say as someone who does have like a surrogate sister in my life, like someone who's not biologically my sister, but by all intents and purposes, like we call each other brother and sister. That element to the episode just really it's heartwarming to me a little bit. To the whole season, that whole arc of them really realizing their sisterhood with each other. I love that stuff.
I will say this, man. I'm going to tease this with Trish. Is that I think Trish is a character who kind of makes or breaks the season for people. I think there's a lot on Trish's shoulder this season. I think Jessica and Trish's dynamic really speaks to that. So if you're not invested in this dynamic, if you're not invested in this story, this season, I can understand how that would disappoint people if you're not buying into the story.
I am one of those people where, like, to a certain extent, I'm relatively disappointed that we don't get Hellcat this season. But by the same extent, I'm still really invested in Trish's arc, and I think we take her in some really interesting places. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sold on Trish. Like I said, I already kind of called her like one of the MVPs of the season. So, I'm kind of in the camp that really likes her. So.
So Trish is still trying to live vicariously through Jessica. It's just like the flashback at the very beginning of when Jessica met the Purple Man. Like right before that, she was trying to get her to put on literally the costume from the comics, just trying to get her like, hey, be a superhero, Jessica. You're gonna use your powers for good. Great power, great responsibility, all that stuff. She didn't say that, but imagine if she did. So it's so Trish is still trying to. I think in Trish's mind, she's kind of trying to be like the angel on Jessica's shoulder in a way, where I think in actuality, Malcolm is the angel on Jessica's shoulder. At least by this season, I think that would be true. So, she's trying to, and I think the fascinating thing in re-examining this story with Trish, and I think, again, as we get further into it, without saying too much, I think Trish is doing a lot of stuff in this episode that, again, you would read on a first watch, like, hey, it's just, it's Trish doing her thing. It's why we love her. She's trying to help her sister. She's trying to give Jessica closure. But again, there's like a dark subplot in the works here where it's.
I definitely think she's being a little pushy this episode, and I think it kind of plays into that.
And again, that pushiness stemming from her living vicariously through Jessica. She's trying to live vicariously through someone who does not want to be if not does not want to be a hero, then someone who does not want to face their past at the very least. Someone who does not want to be proactive in facing their past and doing something very super heroic.
Exactly. I could definitely see some social commentary in there, kind of best friends pushing boundaries when they really shouldn't be pushed. And Jessica Jones, definitely, of course, it's well known that Jessica Jones is a show that's not afraid to hit on said boundaries. So I really like that we're going there with Trish. I like that Trish is not inherently a bad person, but by the same time, even if she's not realizing it, by some way she is taking advantage of Jessica.
Exactly, and I think it's a really fascinating kind of story point with her. That again, Trish is she's doing things. I think we're going to realize she's doing things a little more for herself than for Jessica, and that is kind of. And again, it's not necessarily meaning the things she's doing are not good, but at the same time, I think it's going to kind of pile on each other, and then we're going to see how it lays out against the other side at the end, where she's.
If I can make like a really outlandish analogy, it's almost kind of like the white girl who complains about the taxi driver having a Hawaiian hula girl on his dashboard, and saying like, "Oh, that's culturally insensitive. Oh, I'm gonna like just stick my nose where it doesn't belong."
Wow, that's okay.
Specific.
I get it. I'm just saying that's really out of left field, Tig. I'm sorry. I get what you're saying.
It's based on a real thing that I actually happened in a video I watched recently. So
really,
yeah.
Anyway, so let's see. So I love the thing about this. Trish kind of turned something that was like a pet project of okay, I'm gonna help give Jessica closure for the big mystery in her past. Is like a little something. She was kind of wondering in the back burner, where did Jessica get her powers? And this turned into like a big passion project. As we find, she's been like again, she's making compromises. The biggest one being like in that Patsy wig that she's hated for years. So she confronts. She confronts Jessica with literal. Sorry, I was trying to figure out she confronts Jessica with her literal baggage of her family's ashes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big moment. She's confronting again. That Tiki, that
Which
speaks.
I definitely think that's the moment where she like pushes her boundaries too far. Like
Exactly.
that's the moment where she goes from helpful to like, okay, you are not helping this person recover.
Absolutely, and you're right. That's saying we're definitely seeing some chinks, some underlying chinks in the relationship that again things are going to go. She's kind of pushing Jessica into what sends her down the rabbit hole at the end of this episode. So her pushing along with kind of a something that happens with IGH directly is kind of what solidifies Jessica's path this season, and let's just say kind of launches Jessica into going down a really dark path. Like a lot of bad stuff happens to Jessica because of this of a desire to help, of an overeager desire to help. Jessica is going to face a lot of punishment this season. So they're sisters that want the best for each other, but they are actually they're kind of feeding a darkness to each other in a way.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Okie dokie, time to move on to the next segment. It's time to reach up for some top shelf stuff. Oh, yeah. AKA, what did the episode do that was just kind of above and beyond in your eyes, Dragon?
So again, the directing talent this season overall, and I don't have the director's name in front of me at the moment, but let's just say again, it's because honestly I think every director did an excellent job this season. From the first watching, and we'll see how it holds up on the rewatch. But I'm really impressed with this episode. I feel the show remained very faithful to the show's opening. Basically, it felt very faithful to the show's style. Man, I love the opening. The opening scene where we have, we open exactly like we did the first season, without like doing it like 100% like the same. Like, it's not, she's not throwing a guy through through her glass door. She's not breaking her door again. But I love that, we're seeing her in PI mode. We're seeing like a very kind of noir Jessica Jones, like kind of having a monologue over like, photographing people. Kind of in the middle of some seedy business like she did in the opening. So that communicated to me that, hey, again, without spelling out, it's communicating that, hey, guys, we're doing another season. We're gonna ease you into it so you feel okay. We know what we're doing. We're not just gonna try to do everything differently. We're not gonna try to it's the world is right off the bat relatively different. No, it's like it's the same fundamentally. It's the same show and the same character. We're going to take you through like the next chapter in her story. So I felt it was really an intelligent move to open like that and stay true to the show style while still visually being a little more dynamic.
Yeah, I think the editing in this episode is particularly good, especially with the montage of clients that we get early on. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that feels like something by the first season we got that like when we're looking for people victimized by the Purple Man. That was like episode, I'm guessing 4 or something. That was like down the line, and we're kind of doing that in episode 1 because we're used to that now.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
We're showcasing new locations, and that's cool. Like the pizzeria. We're doing more rooftops this season. That's cool.
Sure.
Seeing the other floors of the apartment. We never did that. It was always Jessica's floor, the stairwell, and then the bottom.
I think this episode does a really good job of mixing humor with dark elements, and that's kind of like one of the tightrope acts that the show walks sometimes.
Malcolm saying "Sorry, Wizard" just cracks me up. By the way, sorry, Wizard.
But Wizard is like an excellent point where he starts out as like the biggest joke of the episode, and then by the end he kind of almost becomes the hope of season 2. You know what I mean? Kind of like the inciting incident that pushes Jessica to action.
You're absolutely right, Tiggy. By definition, he is the inciting incident of this season, the Wizard. I'm gonna blow your mind when we talk about the Wizard. I'm gonna tell all this ridiculous.
Oh no.
Okay, let's see. So Jessica again, she's doing a lot of. I love it when characters. I've kind of mentioned this like in the past of Deadpool. I love a character with an occupation we see them like being really good or like kind of like taking their job like it's like a day at the grind,
Sure. As I already hit on, I think the episode does a very good job of kind of exploring the basically unintentional emotional abuse, like trying to help someone, but then, not realizing that you're in it for your own selfish benefit. I think that's a really important and really subtle real world topic that I will admit, Dragon, I've been guilty of from time to time. So it's kind of like looking at myself in a mirror, kind of like the proactive involvement in someone else's life when they don't really want that involvement.
This is a small thing. I like how we kind of do some great kind of PI shots with her in a dark room with a flashlight. I've always appreciated good flashlight shots. I mean, that was always kind of it's my inner Spielberg. It's like always about the floodlights and the lighting and stuff. I don't know, like a flashlight's always like a good thing for a detective. Detective with a flashlight, that just feels like home. And lastly, the thing I really got to remark, unless you got anything else.
No, I'm done.
The biggest thing I really got to give this episode credit for that really stands out to me is this episode. I was remarking on it while I was watching it the first time. This episode is so dense and full of material. This is a good setup for a season type episode. Like there's a lot of we can compact a lot of stuff without feeling like it doesn't feel like it's too much, but it feels like I can see the plate spinning. I can see, okay, we're beginning some storylines here. We're getting a lot in here. Like again, we get a lot accomplished in this first episode. We do all the wizard stuff instead of like dragging it out 2 episodes. We do like basically except when we go to his apartment next episode. We do all the wizard stuff while he's alive, and we show the status quo. We start your Ogar's thing. She gets bad news on the phone. We do a lot, and we go to IGH, the facility of IGH, and show like a big ominous flash. We accomplish a lot this episode. And I thought that was really, really good.
Yeah, good economic use of time for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to our favorite segment of the episode, the heroic sandwich moment.
We finally have the image, folks. Look at it in all its glory. Look at that heroic sandwich right there. Look at her.
Do you see it, Eli?
She's a hero, darn it.
Anyways.
With mayo.
Okay, so Dragon, I believe I come first chronologically because you're
yes, yeah, you do. Yeah, you're first.
Okay, well, so let's circle back to that D-bag Price for a little bit. Let's circle back to the moment where Jessica confronts Price in his office.
Let's knock the stuffing out of him. Yeah. Yeah.
Dragon, what I love about this episode, or this moment in particular, is that Price so deserves this beatdown because he is just pushing all the wrong buttons. Like, he's essentially like, I'm sorry, Dragon, do you have any particular lines that are very cutting that Price says here?
Well, I mean, I can probably approximate him. Basically, he definitely mentions the Purple Man.
He mentions the Purple Man. He mentions the dead parents. He's basically like
he's goading her. He's definitely goading her, but the problem is it's without purpose. He's just goading her to be an a-hole. That's really what he's doing in this scene. Basically saying, I'm better than you, because what she did, and what really ticked him off, here's the thing. The plan was not for him to goad her. That's just something he did. I want to make that clear. He didn't this wasn't part of the big Hogarth plan. It was just like, hey, just make the offer, and that's all you can really do. And the rest of it was like him showing off to her with the whole, like, hey, you trying to look into me? And then she gave him the finger while she was like, taking the photographs and the iron girder and everything beyond that. I love those shots, by the way. It's another positive. I guess I meant to lay out like her kind of taking photographs and across the way. And anyway, the point is, he kept stealing her clients, and she solved the client's problems a lot faster than he would have, because he's BSing and he's like drawing things out and doing things like the long, boring way, where she can do the direct solution, where she's just, she stole the guy's dog back and solved the guy's problem. That's when he is getting into it, about the basically about professionalism, and saying like, hey, I'm better than you and such.
And essentially, that's what Price is coming off as. He's just kind of got that air of elitism to him. You know what I mean? Like Price almost kind of feels like a Mr. Robot villain, almost. Like a low-level Mr. Robot villain. He's kind of got that corporate smugness to him. And so, as I said, when Jessica is giving the beatdown on this guy, it's a very cathartic moment. But at the same time, the reason why I picked this, it's not necessarily a heroic moment, Dragon, but it ties in with a lot of the themes of the season. Is that we see all the people in the office, kind of like, we got the cell phone cameras pulled out. We got the, whispers of like, call the police, and Jessica, like, she takes a moment and she realizes like how this is coming off to other people, in spite of the fact that we as an audience know that this guy absolutely deserves to get the snot beat out of him. She resists. And that resisting, Dragon, that, resisting in the face of rage, that's going to become one of the key points of the season as we move forward, especially in the second half. So it's just really cool that that's seated in right there. And then Price just gives the D-bag line to end all D-bag lines, where he's just like, "Hero, you're the weakest human being I've ever met." Oh man, I mean, just the generalization there, Trey. It's so cutting, you know.
Yeah, so I mean, something I want to address with that, T. I think you made an excellent point that yes, that is a very pivotal thing for Jessica this season. It's an event that really is going to define like when she's going to be put in that position a few other times when she's going to have to make a big choice like that. You're right; it's a huge thing for her. Something I really want to hit on with that real quick is that again, it speaks to kind of that post Defenders world. Now there's a lot of prejudice against super people. There's a lot of judgment. Like the Avengers aren't going to get that judgment because no one would dare say that to any of the Avengers. But these are the guys who are like the average Joes, the guys with that secret identities. Essentially, what we've done quite cleverly is, unfortunately, we live in a world where we're really dancing through hoops to get the Fantastic Four back. But in reality, if we did have the Fantastic Four, they would face what the Defenders are going through, barring Daredevil, what the Defenders are going through. And essentially, that's what our guys have to live with. You unmasked and guys trying to make ends meet with bills and such. And with Jessica in this episode, I mean, what kicks off that fight too, and I guess I probably meant to mention when you're asking for lines, is Price. He is eager to fight her. Man, he's like at the ready. He has like his little taser thing ready. He warns her like he's like if not like a some degree black belt. He warns her. You know, he's very highly trained, and that's the thing. Like he's like getting in her way as she's trying to leave. She's trying to leave, no fight and anything, and he's raring to go. He wants to fight someone with superpowers, and he tases her the minute like she just like shoves him out of the puts him against the wall. He mentions the purple man. He shoves her. She shoves him against the wall, and then like, he goes for the taser, which again, as the taser doesn't necessarily work on her at first. The point is, it's the bully philosophy. It's like a bully's philosophy of he has everything professionally that he can do to outshine her. He has everything except powers, and he just wants to show her up in that one thing. Why? Because of his ego and because of that prejudice of like, it's like the Lex Luthor Superman thing of like, hey, I can outshine this guy in every way imaginable, but he has powers. He's not, and the only thing I can use to fire back at him is he's not American. He's an alien. He's not human. That's the only thing you can use to fight against them. And that's kind of like, hey, you can fight me, and if you defeat me, if you kill me, what does that say? I still win. And that's kind of what he rubs in her face at the end there. Mm-hmm. My moment's quite simple. It's just honestly, it's a visual cue. I love, and this is the moment, the direction I really got to highlight here, because this moment to me is when I was watching the episode. Because originally I was going to go with the pizza opening, and that's great. I like that. Again, the whole PI thing, the whole opening, that's solid. And that whole like.
I hate to keep making this comparison, but the pizza opening feels very Mr. Robot to me.
The pizza thing.
Yeah, just because it's got that whole thing where it's like it's almost like I feel like every season of Mr. Robot starts with Elliot kind of like, you know, undermining some nefarious guy. You know, it kind of reminds me of the opening of Mr. Robot season 1 in a way.
Yeah, I got you on that. I see that. Yeah.
Anyway.
And again, that opening was good, and the whole like her confronting this person again, showing how horrible some people can be. Where she again just over something very petty, she wants a man murdered, and she's like, hey, a hero would for conspire murder put you in jail, or a vigilante, and they would beat you senseless with my super strength. Now, which one do you want? So that was good. And that's solid. But for me, just the moment in the episode really just kind of took my breath away was the moment where again we established she has the ashes in the box, and again like Trish is kind of throwing that on her lap in a way, and she's going to put that on her desk. And it's like now on her mind. So again we see the idea kind of creeping into her minds. Okay, so logically Jessica, after like a day or so, she'd probably pack them back up or she'd put them away or something. But she's kind of keeping it because it's on her mind. The Wizard comes by, and I love that the Wizard didn't do this. He's not a bad guy. The Wizard's not a bad guy by any stretch. He's a desperate man. Just he's pulled a gun on her, which, and again, that has to be a reference to Defenders, by the way. Again, people pulling guns on Jessica in her apartment. It's never ends well. And basically, he's just kind of using his super speed, and he's kind of, and she doubted, by the way. He's just kind of moving around, thinking she's
Speaking of edit, by the way, I love that cut when he first uses his super speed to move around the apartment.
I love the sound we use. I'm like, how do we differentiate super speed?
It's almost kind of like a Ben Burkian kind of sound.
You're right, Taken. That's something I probably should have mentioned in top shelf stuff. Again, the sound is like, how do you differentiate super speed? And we've seen it done at least 3 times in pop culture. We've seen it done with the Flash, Prime, we've seen it Flash on the TV show, Flash in Justice League, and Quicksilver in Quicksilver in Age of Ultron. Of course, if beyond that, we've seen it done. Like, how do you differentiate? And to be fair, they did do it. They did it differently, and they've done it before, where they make it seem like paranoia, and it's sporadic. They made it sporadic and have that little slow motion. It's like a slow motion music cue. It's the best way I can describe it. Whenever he moves around, it's like all slow and creepy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Anyway, so the point is, while he's just doing it, he's just trying to. It's kind of hard to describe. Like, he's not trying to fight her, but he's just trying to he's on the defensive, and he's like throwing things at her and just trying to keep her away because he thinks she might hurt him. And basically, he's like tossing things around. Of course, on her desk are 3 boxes full of ashes, and I don't know what to say. I think it's just because it was one box. I kind of knew in the moment that it was her brother, and they confirmed that afterwards. That was her brother's box. So he tosses the box at her, and Tiki is just so beautifully played. And I think it's we'll see how it goes, because again, 7 and 11 obviously have a lot of fantastic moments in them and all the fantastic images and such. But I mean, honestly, before those episodes happen, the big image for me this whole season was this moment. She deflects the ashes, literally deflecting her problems, deflecting her origin, deflecting her trauma. She deflects it, and everything goes slow motion because you, the audience member, know. Oh no, you know what's going to happen. And I remember that kind of clicked with me the second it transpired. Like, oh my god, that's the moment that's in the trailer. We thought she was at a construction site or something, like covered in dirt.
Right,
like it hits
right.
It hits the ceiling, and oh my god, Tiki was, I think, it's the most brilliant move in this first episode, where the ashes rain down upon her. It's like her trauma is coating her. It's like, how can you do something traumatic but not as drawn out? I don't mean drawn out about. I mean, like, for 2 months she was kept prisoner by Kilgrave. Like, how can you do something like that in one instant? How can you do something visually like that in one instant? The ashes, or her brother's ashes, are falling upon her. The bottled up, the bottled up trauma and bottled up PTSD of her losing her family, falls on her and is literally on her sleeves. And again, we just see her and just like processing, and Kirsten Ritter is giving a performance like without a single word uttered. It's like she's taking this in, but at the same time, I love that she's not angry at him. She's not angry at the wizard. She's traumatized in this moment, but what she does,
sure.
But she's motivated by this again, because now she needs someone to blame. She's not blaming the wizard, but she's blaming the guy the wizard's going after. And probably after going through all she went through in Defenders, like, okay, a guy comes to my apartment, pulls a gun on me, and swears up and down some clandestine organization is after him. I believe it now. It's just happened in a very bad way, and I'm gonna get a hey, look, IGH, they sent you something. Let's talk this through. And oh my god, it's a fantastic moment. Probably one of the best bits this season for me.
Okay. And Dragon, just I think outside of the wizard being off, like, this is definitely, like, even beyond the wizard getting off, this is by far the definitive call to arms.
Certainly.
All right. So let's move on to the penultimate installment. Let's get to some alleyway evidence.
I got a little wrapped up in the ashes thing, but just also say it was heroic, though, how she still kind of kept going and went through like a heroic kind of albatross, if you will. So I just want to get that in there too.
Sure.
So yes, alleyway evidence. And by the way, stunning image, folks. This is what I've always imagined with alleyway evidence. Always heard between those two little brick buildings.
All right, so a lot of stuff to get into. Let's just try and get this through as quick as we can, kind of bullet point style.
Okay, bullet points. It's post Defenders in season 1 of Jessica Jones, being known for killing Kilgrave, so she's dealing with the reputation of that.
Right, kind of setting up the dynamic with her and Oscar. The prejudice against the heroes that develops at the end of the episode with him.
We have Trish in her red Patsy wig.
Oh, yes.
Full Patsy regalia, even.
Kind of hinting at some dark stuff to come in the season with Patsy, but
okay, now,
light tone.
Speaking of Patsy, we have to hit this. This is hugely important. We have the Cray Cray song mentioned. And we mentioned that Trish really doesn't like it. She really doesn't want to do Cray Cray.
Yeah.
Again, the opening from season 1 with the PI shots and the inner monologue. We were doing that.
Of course, all the IGH stuff. The fact that Malcolm keeps getting fired, like I said, that's sort of like, as the season progresses, that becomes more and more of a dramatic tension instead of a running joke.
This is great, and this is going to pay off again in another favorite episode of ours. Trish and Jessica watching noir classics, watching black and white noir classics on the rooftop, watching Touch of Evil,
Sure.
Orson Welles movie.
Let's see all the different calls to action, including Jerry with her diagnosis, and then Jessica with the ashes. Basically all these pieces are being set into place.
Let's see, Jerry versus her law partners, Chow and Benowitz. After the whole Wendy Pam affair, after the whole problem character affair from last season.
We get a really good tease at the potential villain of the season at the end of the episode.
Oh, certainly we have what we nicknamed the hamburger face. Well, I nicknamed the hamburger faced creature that looked vaguely like Deadpool, but the hamburger faced creature.
And without getting into any spoilers, folks, that character is definitely a subversion of what we were expecting. Can't wait to get into that when we cover it.
There is a possibly really clever Skrull reference in this episode. Reference to the Skrulls. The bad guys we're going to see in Captain Marvel, of course, famously the shapeshifters from the Fantastic Four. One of the crazies who come in. And again, we did this like in the first season with Purple Man mentioning, all the crazies.
The people.
Yes, the lizard people wearing human skin. Very possibly could be a Skrull reference.
I just thought that was just a fun poke at conspiracy theory nuts, but
I mean, you're right, it is. First and foremost, it's that. I'm just saying some really diehard Marvel fans have said, oh my god, it's just Skrulls. I didn't pick up on it. I was like, oh yeah, I guess that could be Skrulls.
Of course, importantly, we hit the theme of Jessica and Patsy being surrogate sisters. That
old chestnut.
Work its way through the episode.
Trish is being watched by someone in a hoodie with a breathing apparatus of some kind. Let's see. Okay, we're almost through. Let's see. Okay, the hypnotist. I'm not. We'll see later on if it's the same hypnotist that we're going to meet later in the season. But regardless, on Trish's show, they mention hypnotist Dr. Maynard Tabloid. I hope I'm saying that right. The point is that character is the ringmaster. So famously, in the first issue of the Avengers, the ringmaster hypnotized the Hulk into being part of a circus. That it was a bizarre story. The point is, it was
reminded of We're Back at Dinosaur Story.
You're Tiki. I swear to God, you're not wrong. You're not far off with that. I've way back in there. I remember I've seen people adapt that story. They've done essentially it's that. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Okay, well the big let me talk about the Wizard real quick. So the Wizard is the biggest comic pull for this. So the Wizard and Tiki, as was happening, I'm sorry.
Oh, I just said, oh dear, it's time for a comic book lecture from BlueDragonFive. Strap in, folks.
Okay, so the Wizard is the Wizard, when it happened, I was like, is that who I think it is? I recognize it. And when I thought I heard him say the Wizard, I was saying, is he saying the Wizard or is he saying literally the Wizard? And I know who the Wizard is. So he said the Wizard. Essentially, the Wizard is a Flash knockoff. It's a really cheap, and it's a self-aware Flash knockoff. All right, the Wizard was like an old school, really cheesy. Later on, it became became more of a self-aware. Yeah, we know it's a real cheesy knockoff of the Flash. In animation, he was in the Spider-Man animated series in the '90s, and like that Captain America episode, Captain America only appeared twice in the series. He was in Secret Wars, and he was in an episode before, like an arc of episodes called the Forgotten Six Warriors, I think. And one of the Six Warriors was the Wizard, who was like an old school Marvel character who they brought back and made more ridiculous each time they've done so. And the point is, the Wizard has a very ridiculous origin that we are going to reference in the next episode.
Oh boy!
And essentially, Tiki, I'm not making this up. I swear to you, I am not making this up.
All right.
He was bitten by a cobra.
Oh god!
And they used mongoose blood.
Oh no! Oh no!
In a transfusion, essentially, he was bitten by it. I don't think it was a radioactive. I think at some point in the process it was irradiated. I think the mongoose blood was like irradiated, and they basically transfused mongoose blood into him. And yeah, it's like they spliced mongoose or cobra DNA into the guy. That's why he's so fast. They're both like fast things are in this guy's DNA. And of course, I'm saying for what we learned later on with how the whole power process goes to IGH, they take animal DNA. So that's a big nod to what they're going to do with IGH. And the thing with the Wizard is that the Wizard, he's a ridiculous villain. And here's the thing. He does die in the comics a lot, so that's the gag in killing him off here is that he does die, and the death I remember, and the reason I know who Wizard is, Tiki, in Deadpool #0. Deadpool #0, they have a clone of the Wizard, and Deadpool just hilariously kills him off.
Oh man.
And that's the thing, because basically Deadpool pointed out like his first, it's like it's a really rare issue like Deadpool #0. It's like they parody Spider-Man in that, where basically it's a real funny. You can probably find this online somewhere. It's like the still of this. Deadpool catches some bizarre. There are a lot of clones. Like there are Gwen Stacy clones. There's a ton of clones. That's the whole gag. So they're making fun of the clone saga of Spider-Man, where Deadpool he kills Uncle Ben and Aunt May because he catches them in bed, and it's so traumatizing to him. He has to shoot the clone versions. I'm not making that up. It's just ridiculous. It's silly. And anyway, so along the way, like the main job was to kill the Wizard. He killed the Wizard, and the Wizard died. And in both versions, like the real guy died, and then Deadpool killed the clone. Just, the Wizard's a lame hero. Let's face it. All right, and that's the.
All right.
He's lame, but he's kind of endearing, I guess. So I think we got through. Price Chang is gunning for Jessica and in league with Jerry, and I think that's. The last thing we got to hit. The very last thing. Mm-hmm. We end on the image of Jessica's eye, which again is what we have in the.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, thank you.
So what's really cool is at the end of the awesome, and I've always loved the intro of Jessica Jones, but I love the music, I love the visuals, I love the whole.
I would wager to say it's probably my favorite of the Netflix intros with Marvel.
You know, I'm sucked up by the majesty of the Daredevil one, but I will say stylistically and just like which one's better. Jessica, I would agree with you. Jessica Jones is probably the best, but Daredevil just has like the feeling of like, oh my god, it's Daredevil.
I've never really been huge on Daredevil's whole wax motif, I gotta say.
Well, yeah, it's blood. It's blood kind of coating the city.
Yeah, I'm still not huge on it. Anyways.
Okay, well, again, I'll agree with the most
even.
You're right. So anyway, so the point is, we have the eye image from the end of that, and also let's just say we're gonna reference that painting style in the opening.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so yeah, that's what we got there.
Okay, folks, it's time to close down the bar and get everyone out for the last call.
Yes.
I could have worded that way better than
Jessica's
I did.
leading by example right now, folks. We have our Marvel brand, and we're stocking up here, and we're gonna take our final drinks and kind of say, "That was good."
All right, so final thoughts on this episode, Dragon. I think this is a very, very good start to the season. Unfortunately, I feel like starting like right at episode 2, the season kind of slows down to a halt until episode 7. So we'll see how those episodes kind of hold up on a rewatch for me, but I'm not really going in expecting much on a rewatch. But this episode is kind of the thing that made me sold on like, yeah, we really should like start sooner rather than later in terms of covering this season. And I honestly kind of made that call before I heard any of the backlash against the season or the fact that people are really disappointed in the season. But honestly, I feel like that whole backlash thing kind of it makes it that much more important to talk about this while it's still fresh in people's heads. But I definitely think there's a lot of stuff that gets set up in this episode in a good way. We've got a lot of humor. We've got some good editing with the montages, a lot of build up to the mystery, good character dynamics. It's good to be back in this world. It's good to characters like Malcolm and Trish are improved from season 1, and it's got a weird like almost like a mirror of the season 1 call to arms with the death of the Wizard versus the death of Hope, and just overall a very solid start. It's very well constructed, and you totally, especially since Dragon, I watched both the finale of this season and then the first episode. So I definitely see kind of the, it's like poetry. It rhymes, So, I'm very impressed, but I'm, like I said, I'm kind of, I'm very much hoping that episodes 2 through 6 hold up better than they did on my first impressions.
Mm. Yeah, for me, it's it's a very dense introduction for the season. It's full of a lot of potential. It's I love the new status quo. Post season 1 on Defenders. I think it's a smart kind of way of approaching like a new season, just kind of still developing the world without kind of like just getting more of the same. I love the smart practicalities of the world. the world Jessica's in right now, and in being in that world and kind of being looked at very differently. If Jessica's a very private person, just kind of like nursing her pain kind of privately to herself and still just trying to make a living. Now she can't really do that without being in the spotlight, and she's very uncomfortable doing that. So I like they were really kind of exploring those issues. You got a lot of very memorable moments, and it's very well shot, and we have some shots again. With the big the ashes falling image. It's again speaking to Jessica's PTSD and not being able to. And again, we're doing all that without even centering around Kilgrave. Again, he's always kind of in the air, but I love that we're doing all of this stuff without even getting into Kilgrave.
Like I said, the closest thing that we get to Kilgrave in this episode is like, ooh, there's another British character.
Well, another British character in like the prick of the episode says, "Hey, Kilgrave."
Yeah, right.
So the episode, so again, like he's always mentioned as like the victim. And that, honestly, I'm sorry, it's just dawned on me in the moment here. I'm just getting a little excited. It kind of occurs to me that what's kind of cool is every time Kilgrave is brought up, it's kind of turning him into a martyr, which has got to really bother Jessica on some level. Think about that.
Oh,
it's
sure,
like,
sure.
Oh yeah, that guy you killed, that guy you killed, that guy you killed. It's like, oh my God, she's. It's like you gotta imagine they have some Kilgrave fans like, oh, she killed the poor British guy we all loved. Okay, but the episode
did kind of kill the British guy that we all love.
No, but seriously, it's like basically everyone is talking about the guy like she just wanted to cut the guy out of her life. Again, she didn't plan on murdering, but she kind of had. She was in a position where she literally had to, because if you remember, that ending of that first season was like, if Trish got on that boat, if she got on the boat, if she ever saw Jessica again after taking a step on that boat, her orders were to slit her own throat. So Jessica had to kill him in that moment. So it's she's definitely living with what she thought was like, hey, maybe man, I'm done with him now. Maybe I don't have to worry about him anymore. Nope, she's going to be hearing about him every 5 seconds she uses her powers. So the episode's about having courage to go into your past, and I think that's what the ending symbolizes when she goes to IGH and she kind of, after going through a lot of like recent trauma, she goes into her past and she explores said trauma, and I think that speaks to that underlining kind of that hero sandwich thing we love about Jessica. That moment of she's going to do something because it's the right thing to do. It's kind of in her DNA. Like, she would like to be a hero. She doesn't want to. It's not a moment where Trish is going to force her to be a hero, but it's going to be in a private moment where, like a true hero, like a Spider-Man, like an actual actual true blue hero, she's going to do something. Not because she needs the press, not because she needs to wear a costume, just because who else is going to do it? Just because it's something like a kid walks out into the street. No one's watching, no one's paying attention, she's going to get killed. You need to hope that there's going to be some person who fundamentally is good or decent enough in this world that can pull that kid away from the front of that car, like stop that car, like say someone help that kid. And I think Jessica is that person.
Okay. Well, folks, that's the last call, which means we've been cut off. But as we finish our Marvel brand this evening and top off another bottle of Jessica Jones, we take a minute to toast Marvel on another fine Netflix series.
I'll drink to that.
Get back here, Jessica!